This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Director of the Kansas Farm Service Agency, Dennis McKinney, begins today's show with an update on deadlines for FSA programs many Kansas producers use. Keeping the show going is A.J. Tarpoff, K-State Extension beef veterinarian, discussing what beef quality assurance is and how producers can attend a training to get certified. The Beef Cattle Institute's Brad White, Bob Larson, Phillip Lancaster, and Brian Lubbers finish the show by talking about if feeding pregnant cattle in the evening impacts when they give birth. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Wednesday show with some information from the Kansas Farm Service Agency. And this week, we're joined by Director of the Kansas Farm Service Agency, Dennis McKinney. Dennis, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Dennis, quite a few different things to talk through today, and the first one being ARC and PLC.
March 15th is the deadline to get signed up for your ARC PLC selections. You need to get signed up in that ARC PLC program. It's kind of the foundation program on the farm program side, and March 15th is the deadline. Please don't wait until the last minute. A lot of times we're trying to wait to see which is most advantageous, get more market data. And I've also mentioned K-State Research and Extension is doing some programs on this. So check your extension agent, see what information they have to help producers get information to make a good decision. You know, last year we had a lot of people bounce to the ARC side because we were in such a drought. This year we think perhaps people bounce back to the PLC side. But, get your data and please get signed up and don't wait till the last minute so we don't have everybody coming in at once at the local county offices. Our folks are pretty nice out there. They love their producers, but, help them out once in a while and don't wait till the last minute. And I'm speaking to myself as much as to anybody else on this program on that issue.
And if people would like to find some information from K-State's Agricultural Economics Department, Jenny Ift and Robin Reed have done some work with ARC and PLC. And if you want to find that, you can go to agmanager.info. But now coming back to the Farm Service Agency, Dennis, NAP has a deadline that's coming up.
That's right. March 15th is the last day to apply for the NAP insurance. That's the insurance that covers the crops that are otherwise non-insurable for those spring planted crops. So you want to get that application in. This covers like your vegetable crops. Is growing in popularity because we have more and more specialty crop producers across the state. We have more urban ag producers and other small producers who are marketing direct to consumers. So it's a popular program. Please keep good records for us. If you do have a claim in a drought or some other problem, we need production history we can compare it to and help calculate your yield. So we've had some people in the past that have done some U-Pick programs where they let the consumer come in and pick, and they didn't keep very good records on what was produced. So please help us out. We can help you better if you've got production records. So please keep that. And then also March 1, not the 15th. And now it's March 1 is the last day to apply for losses, 2023 losses under the Livestock Indemnity Program. So if you had losses in 2023, you've got to have that application turned in by March 1. So I talk about Livestock Indemnity Program. We had some severe weather here in January. So if you think you might be applying for Livestock Indemnity Program loss, help cover your losses here in January, that'd be great. Talk to folks at our county offices about what you need. Please keep some records, your calving books, veterinary records, take some pictures. We'll need your inventory by weight class prior to the weather event and your inventory by weight class after the weather event. And we need some kind of production records on that, so to help us out again.
And what would be some example of losses for that Livestock Indemnity Program?
Well, for example, where we had extended severe cold spell, some people got caught calving during that time, and despite good management efforts, lost quite a few. We don't cover the baseline death loss. If your typical death loss is 2 or 3%, we don't cover that, but we can help cover a part of what's over that to help mitigate that risk. So, and that covers all breeds, all species, cattle, goats, sheep, all those. In Kansas, typically it'll be cattle losses, but not always. And sometimes pigs. We had a producer come in one time who he said he did Arkansas farrowing. We said, "What's that?" And he said, well, pigs run on the entire quarter section. When he wants to catch something, he feeds them and he shuts the gate and catches them. But so all kinds of producers out there, and we try to accommodate, but we do need records for those.
And something else in Kansas currently having sign up for is continuous CRP.
That's right. Yeah, we have continuous CRP sign-up is underway now. This covers a lot of the smaller projects like filter strips, buffer strips, wetlands restoration, but also some of the others like upland game. A continuous CRP contract typically will range from 10 to 15 years. They can go up as much as 15 years. The upland game safe CRP covers the entire state. It also is open the other continuous CRP is open as the lesser prairie chicken safe CRP, which will be in western Kansas, which intends to improve habitat for the lesser prairie chickens since they're now listed as a threatened species. So that's open as well. I might mention, particularly in eastern Kansas, where we see a lot of buffer strips, filter strip, CRP, we've had a decline in the acres under that of over 50% since 2009. So we're trying to come up with ideas. How do we improve the value of that to the producer? Obviously, a higher rental rate will bring more back in, but can we let producers, say, swath those filter strips and swath and bale them every other year with no charge, 100% of the acres, and make it more convenient? That also keeps the brush out of those filter strips and maintains a good grass strip every other year, so we still have the filter strip, we still have better wildlife habitat, we create more value to the producer, so when they're in a pinch, they call and say, can I hay it? Yes, we can. Because that's the call we get most often on buffer strips, filter strips, can I hay it? And it does come with restrictions right now that are kind of, for a producer, they're kind of irritating based on if you're talking about haying 14 acres, a small strip. So we're trying to figure out how do we create more value in that, because they're important not just to improve habitat and reduce erosion in the field, but they prevent a lot of sedimentation into our reservoirs and streams. And in eastern Kansas, those federal reservoirs are a huge source of drinking water, and we need to maintain the life of those federal reservoirs. So we need to take a look at that. We've lost half those acres, and so somewhere we need to improve what we're doing.
As we're talking about CRP, also keeping in mind general and migratory waterfowl. Right.
We're operating right now under an extension of the 2018 Farm Bill. I can't guarantee it, but I expect there to be a general CRP sign-up. Of course, that's statewide. People will take a look at it on highly erodible acres. They may have some expiring. They want to re-enroll. So I'm hopeful that will come up this spring. Also, the migratory waterfowl safe CRP, which is a specialized CRP that covers western Kansas, western Oklahoma, west Texas, western Nebraska, in which it's basically focuses on restoring those playa lakes, those small playas out there across those regions. It captures the playa. We restore the playa. It gets surrounding area that's highly erodible put back into grass. We see a benefit not just to migratory waterfowl, but to all the upland game as well as lesser prairie chicken. The other thing we see with this is that we're finding an increase in groundwater recharge rates as we restore these playas. Not a real fast increase, but it is an increase in groundwater recharge. Number of benefits on that. We've had a lion's share of the enrollment in western Kansas as opposed to the other three states, and we look forward to that opening back up. It also has a higher rental rate that helps encourage producers to enroll. Multiple benefit program. I'm really enthused about that one.
And something else from the Kansas Farm Service Agency that we're going to cover today, and touching on a few notes of the farm loan program.
That's right. We have online payments are now possible. The Farm Service Agency is working on developing online loan applications, which, of course, for guys my age, we still like the pencil and paper. But for a lot of our younger producers who are really good at technology, it's much more convenient, and we're working on that. But I'd also add, we've had an uptick in loan volume, primarily due to drought. A lot of reasons involved, but we've had a number of producers who just got caught exactly wrong in drought. Their cash flow is bad. They're struggling with the commercial lender. It really points to why we have a farm loan program at the Farm Service Agency, because a lot of producers have proven their capability. They're caught in a tough cash flow situation now. We can help them stay in business, help with a guaranteed loan or a direct loan, stay with their commercial lender and keep them in business. A few years they get to going again. We graduate them out of our program and they're back totally with the commercial lender. Take a look at us. Don't assume you're not eligible. We have a program for beginning farmers and veterans that's particularly advantageous, where we partner with the bank to provide financing. Our share of that loan, our interest rate on our share of that loan is 1.5%. We have other loan programs that range from 3.5% up to roughly 5.5% interest rates right now. So we have a variety of programs. Come check us out. Don't assume you're not eligible until we tell you, because a lot of people have tried and found out they are eligible. And we can help people get started. We know we need more younger producers in agriculture in Kansas, and we can help them get started on the right sound footing so they can survive some tough times and still be there 30 years from now or 40 years from now.
And Dennis, always wanting to remind people, where can they find out more information from the Farm Service Agency?
Always feel free to go to your local county service center. We have 96 USDA service centers across the state. In all those service centers, we're co-located with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We like to work together. I'm very proud of our folks at those county service centers. They have a very strong commitment to good quality public service. I don't know how many times I hear those folks at our service centers say, I just love the producers. I love working here because I love working with these producers. And it points out that why we really think our job is a privilege. We have the privilege of partnering with the world's best farmers and ranchers. We get to help reduce erosion, improve wildlife habitat, and we keep creating, with those producers, we keep creating the safest, most abundant food supply in the world. And we're proud of that mission.
Dennis, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us some information from the Farm Service Agency.
Thank you.
That was the State Director of the Kansas Farm Service Agency, Dennis McKinney. And if you'd like to find more information about the programs that he was talking about today, you can do that by going to Farmers.gov. And also on Farmers.gov, you can see the latest news and important dates and deadlines that are coming up. You can also find this information by going in person to your local service center. If you don't know where that is, by going to the website Farmers.gov, in the upper right-hand corner, you can click on Service Centers and put in your location to find the nearest one to you. Also, just a reminder that K-State's Robin Reed and Jenny Ift have done some work around ARC and PLC, which you can find that by going to agmanager.info. Again, that is agmanager.info. I will link both of these websites in today's show notes, which, as always, you can find on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now, but stick around because we have more for you ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our Wednesday show talking about beef quality assurance trainings. And to talk about them, we're joined by K-State Extension beef veterinarian AJ Tarpoff. AJ, thanks for joining us today.
Always a pleasure to be on.
AJ, usually the beef quality assurance just shortened to BQA. And what is BQA?
Oh, BQA, it's been around for a long time. And those of you that maybe haven't been to a beef quality assurance training in some time, it's changed over the years. This is really molded and developed into a producer-driven, it's always been producer-driven, but this is industry-driven, industry-created, best management practices for industry that we can share and talk about. Right. These are practices. A lot of it is, it's staying up to date. There are new technologies, new developments, new recommendations on what, as an industry, we ought to be doing to be better. Right. And this is, again, going all the way back to the early 90s, talking about beef quality assurance. Our concerns back then with the beef industry was, quality and consistency of product, of beef products. What we've done is we've used kind of that industry-driven technique that we've changed and adapted that to truly the continuing education of the cattle producer. I mean, it really is. And we think about continuing education. We think about medical professions and things like that. It's amazing what our consumer thinks when we tell them that there is a continuing education program that producers voluntarily go and take. They take up time out of their day to go do some of these trainings and these certifications, all for the betterment of raising animals for food more effectively. They love it. And as they should. I mean, we are professionals. We raise food. We raise the safest, most wholesome product in the world, known as beef.
And so something important for producers, consumers, and the cattle?
It really is. So this is developed for cattle producers, right? We're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about handling cattle. We're going to talk about husbandry, how the cattle see the world so we can better ask them to go in certain locations. We're going to talk about facilities, right? Facility design, facility use, cattle flow. We're going to talk about care and well-being. Right, through different periods in time. When things get cold, we had a blizzard a couple weeks ago, right? When things get cold, we're going to share some tips and techniques. I've got some new research that we've conducted here at Kansas State that obviously I incorporate that. That is work that's been done here in Kansas for Kansans and try to get that dissemination out there so we can put that information into the hands of the cattle producer.
And is this a certification process?
So it is. So the BQA, you come to these events, and just so everybody's aware that there's a couple of different ways folks can get beef quality assurance certified. First and foremost, this is a national program that is state implemented. So each state implements this program a little bit differently. Here in Kansas, you can always get BQA certified online, free of charge, through the BQA.org website. Now, we also offer, and these meetings are sponsored by the Kansas Beef Council, but we actually host a number of in-person events. And these in-person events, it takes a couple hours. Usually we end up with a nice, beef dinner sponsored by the Beef Council. But we're able to go through, talk about these things. I'm the lead trainer for here in Kansas, so we can bring your questions. I'm happy to discuss things with you before, after, during, to really make it applicable to everybody.
AJ, you mentioned that this is always kind of continuously developing as you guys learn more information. So how long does that BQA certification last? So the
BQA certifications are good for 3 years. Okay, so for those of you that have, can't remember the last time you did it, now's a good time to get updated. Remember, we certify people, not operations, but we want to get individuals to have this information so they better understand. So if you have employees that, you've been teaching along, well, maybe those employees are good to come and get that BQA certified, get that information, understand their importance in raising beef.
AJ, is there a way that the BQA training can almost be used for marketing?
Actually, there is. So there's been some interesting work looking at large sales information from some of the online auctions. And when lots of cattle go up for sale and it is clearly identified that the operator that raised them was BQA certified, that actually carries a premium on those calves. So it matters for the producer, it matters for the animals, for their care and well-being, but also the consumer. So who we're selling our calves or our cattle or our product to, both on the beef side and the live animal side, it seems like everybody looks at this program and says, you know what, we can get behind that. And if I'm going to go buy those calves and they were raised by somebody that's taken time to go learn best management practices, and they're going to put that on the sales sheet, hey, that means something.
For people who are wanting some BQA training in person, AJ, you have some upcoming dates, and when and where are those?
Yeah, so we're going to be hosting a number of more meetings here through February and March. All of this information can be found on the ksubeef.org website. The locations, for those of you, just to throw out locations, coming up at the end of the week, Coffeyville, Kansas, down in the southeast. In a couple weeks, we're going to head out west. We're going to go to La Crosse and St. Francis at the sale barns out west. So again, come one, come all. And we're going to finish up later on in middle to end of March in Junction City and Syracuse. So again, we're trying to get pretty wide coverage. I've already have one under my belt. We did one over in Leavenworth County this past weekend. It's always great to get out and around the state and visit with cattle producers.
AJ, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us some information about beef quality assurance.
Thank you.
That was K-State Extension beef veterinarian AJ Tarpoff talking about his upcoming beef quality assurance trainings. The next one is taking place February 9th in Coffeyville, and then following that in La Crosse on February 20th, and then on the 22nd in St. Francis. Then on March 18th, it's in Junction City, and the final one is taking place then on March 26th in Syracuse. Again, these are for in-person beef quality assurance trainings by K-State Extension beef veterinarian AJ Tarpoff. You can find more information about these by going to ksubeef.org. Again, that is ksubeef.org. And while you're there, you can see some other upcoming events. For example, the cow-calf production clinics, the next one on February 15th in Smith Center or February 20th in Eureka. Also coming up is the Alfalfa Winter School on February 13th in Great Bend, and then also the McPherson County Cow-Calf School on February 22nd in McPherson. You can learn more information about these events and get registered for them by going to ksubeef.org. Before we cut to a break, we're now going to be joined by Amelia Schatz from Kansas Wheat with this week's Wheat Scoop.
Kansas wheat farmers voiced their concerns and priorities for the next farm bill last week. both at home during the 2024 Kansas Commodity Classic and in the nation's capital as part of national winter wheat meetings. Having farmers ask questions directly about policies and provide their perspective on what's going on in farm country adds emphasis and personal impact to national policy discussions, said Shayna DeGroat, Kansas Wheat Director of Membership and Government Affairs. In Washington, D.C., the Kansas delegation met with counterparts from across the country during the NOG U.S. Wheat Winter Conference, which brings together both the National Association of Wheat Growers, the industry's policy arm, and U.S. Wheat Associates, the export market development organization dedicated to promoting wheat in international markets. As part of the larger fly-in organized by NOG, Kansas wheat farmers and staff took to the Hill to communicate the importance of getting a farm bill passed before the current one-year extension expires and providing their input on meaningful changes that would benefit Kansas wheat producers. The group met with all 6 of the U.S. congressional offices representing the state of Kansas. They reiterated the importance of maintaining crop insurance as the U.S. farm safety net, the need to double funding for export market programs, and increasing the reference price for wheat. More specifically, the team outlined the inequalities in the distribution of the disaster payments under the 2022 Emergency Relief Program. Even more specifically, NOG is advocating to officially classify intentionally seeded winter wheat as a cover crop for NRCS and other climate-smart programs, while not impacting its eligibility as a harvestable cash crop insurable through crop insurance and other safety net programs. Off the Hill, the U.S. Wheat Associates Board of Directors elected Kansas wheat farmer Gary Miller-Shasky of Lakin as Secretary-Treasurer for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. As a member of the U.S. Wheat Associates officer team, Miller-Shasky will provide a Kansas perspective and help guide the organization's work in more than 100 countries to develop, maintain, and expand international markets. Meanwhile, back home in the Sunflower State, Kansas wheat farmers also had the opportunity to discuss policy, markets, and weather during the 2024 Kansas Commodity Classic on January 26th in Salina. At the annual convention of the Kansas Corn, Wheat, Soybean, and Grain Sorghum Associations, Ross Jansen, KWIC's chief meteorologist, shared his positive outlook on the weather for the 2024 growing season, while Jim Miner, agricultural economist and director of the Center for Commercial Agriculture at Purdue University, presented a tight outlook on the grain market. Representative Jake LaTurner answered a wide swath of questions from the audience regarding political discussions in Washington, D.C., followed by a panel of representatives from the national commodity organizations. These events guide our actions to follow up on conversations, answer questions, and make sure our legislators have the information they need to put those priorities to work, DeGroat said. Learn more about opportunities to continue these policy discussions and the other benefits of joining COG at kswheat.com/advocacy for Kansas wheat growers. For Kansas Wheat, I'm Amelia Schatz.
Once again, that was Amelia Schatz with Kansas Wheat. You can find more information from Kansas Wheat by going to kswheat.com. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Wednesday show with the Beef Cattle Institute's Brad White, Bob Larson, Phillip Lancaster, and Brian Lubbers.
This listener question was focused on feeding cows in the evening to try to get them to calve in the morning, and basically they were asking, is there any science to this?
There was a study from Iowa State where they tracked about 1,300 cows across 15 farms. And the ones that fed in the evening hours, like around dusk or so, had about 85% of those cows calved between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. the next day. Or not the next day, but sorry, those daytime hours. Yeah. And those farms that did not, it was about 50-50 between daylight hours and nighttime hours.
So basically making the cows eat in the evenings tended to make them not calve during the nighttime.
Yeah, shifted that calving to the daylight hours.
And I had some producers that did that, and I agree that I think it does shift that. It's nowhere near 100%. I mean, you're still going to have some cows that calve at night, but it will, I think, move some cows to calve during daylight hours. So it might be worth it. Now, a couple of things that means that, either you're feeding square bales or you're hand delivering ground hay or something like that, or you've got bales in a lot that you exclude cows from during part of the day and only allow them in there in the evenings and at nighttime. So logistics to get it accomplished may not be really useful for all farms, but some, it might be something that's interesting to them.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, if you're feeding the supplement in, like if you're feeding grain to your cows or whatever, feeding that in the evening time would probably at least make some difference as far as shifting the high energy calories to.
Yeah, but the research was really about feeding hay at night, and that's my clients were using small square bales, and so they would put out enough, and the cows would basically consume it before the next morning. I also had one client that had a day job, and they actually used it opposite. So they fed during the day so that they would calve at night. And since I was the veterinarian, it really appeared to work well in that sense because I was doing a lot of nighttime calvings. I think to really get the impact that you want, it's going to have to be the hay feeding.
Did either of the studies you guys referenced, did they talk about why? Like, is there any suspicion of why this happens?
I mean, you could think about gut feel. You could think about, the hormonal patterns that come with digestion. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think, anecdotally, I've heard the same thing, but I just, nobody's ever really said why that happens. So,
and one quick thing, I think, the reason to do this is to make calving more convenient, but it doesn't eliminate the need to check cows during the nighttime. I mean, if it doesn't work so well that now I can sleep through the night and don't have to worry about it. It should mean that maybe I have fewer actual times when I need to assist a cow during the nighttime, but I still need to check and I still need to monitor just like I would. So again, it's not going to solve all your problems.
No, You still got to check. Hopefully you're going to spend less time out there.
Get back to bed.
Back to bed, yes.
Well, and it just depends on what your schedule is. But there may be very little cost for implementing this, in which case
why
it
not?
doesn't have to have a lot of benefit.
Right.
If it's a high cost because I have to take off work early to go do this before it gets dark, then that could be a problem, and the benefit may not be worth it. But if it's easy to do, it may make a difference even with that supplement. I wouldn't count on it, like you said. It's not going to get rid of all of my nighttime calving. So I think it's going to be an option there. But what you guys are saying is there are some studies out there, and we also know there's some anecdotal reports. And separating those two, which is what makes this a good question, is some of the studies would say, yeah, it helps some. The anecdotal reports say it's the greatest thing ever. So probably I'd lean more toward the it helps some part. Feed them in the evening if you can. If not, whenever you feed them, if you've got round bales out there, you're still going to be needing to do those observations. And if you want to hear more about those observations, we talked about it last time on the podcast of what to look for in calving.
That was part of the Beef Cattle Institute's Cattle Chat podcast. You can find the full episode on the podcast streaming platform of your choice. That's all we have for you today on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you tomorrow.